again, my qualifications to speak on this very important and small topic of metatourism. First of all, I graduated from college. It's not important from what college, I don't really want to discuss that, but I did graduate from it, and I graduated in 4 years. I received a master's degree in philosophy from the Memphis State University, as it was then known. I know. And I mention that only because when I was there, they changed it to the University of Memphis, which has really turned some academic heads lately by being #1 in the AP college poll for basketball. So, it's a real think tank. And long before becoming a marginally employed magazine writer, my first ever publication was a book review in Husserl Studies, which, if you haven't heard of it, was sort of like the Spy of Teutonic phenomenological journals. Yes, it's true. But by far my most important qualification is that from 2000 to 2005, I worked in an office at 44th Street and 3rd Avenue, a corner that happens to offer a completely unobstructed view of the Chrysler Building. Right there. That's it. Take it with a camera phone. Not bad. Not great. I mean, there are plenty of better pictures of the Chrysler Building available on postcards and in guidebooks that are you come across. But for some reason, whenever tourists see this particular view of it, they want to make a view of their own. So, here's one example. But here's one example. I was a smoker at the time that I worked at this building, and I spent a good percentage of each day on the sidewalk, avoiding work and puffing away, and eventually taking pictures like these. I remember this guy. He took a really long time. This guy, he was like shooting rolls and reloading, and like people wouldn't get on it. I was like, give somebody else a chance, man. Well, this is a lot of people want to take a picture here. Basically, all these pictures were taken from 2004 to 2005, and I took a lot of pictures and I collected them on a blog called Shiny, Pointy, and Tall, which I took to be the 3 attributes that made this view so irresistible to tourists. Because, and I started using the term metatourism to describe my idle pastime. Yes, somebody pointed to it. You see there's a man in the foreground here. There's also some crouching Scandinavians. I know this because I believe this bag said like Denmark or something. Crouching Scandinavians. So I called this metatourism. I would just like to make a note for anybody, if there's any real experts in the house, which I hope not. There's an actual field of metatourism devoted to things like trying to make tourism more eco-friendly and stuff like that. But we will not be discussing that today. I'm talking about the very specific use of metatourism as what you see before you. This guy, I remember, he actually had a name. Because it became a pastime with me and my smoking friends to stand there and way down 3rd Avenue see if we could see the people who were going to come upon this view and be forced to take a picture of it. And we saw this guy coming very far away. He had big hiking shorts and he had big boots on. And my friend, who was a bit of a curmudgeon, smirked. Get your camera out, Sven. As you can see, Sven was happy to be here. Often tourists would stand side by side and take identical pictures at the Chrysler Building. This is a rare trifecta. I do have a 4-shot, but it's not really clear, so I brought this one. Some people brought equipment. Some people, only one that I saw, tried the very difficult to achieve self-portrait with Chrysler Building. Here's the setup. You ready? There's the shot. The angle is not good for this. It's very hard. I have another one. The only other way to take a picture of your friend in front of the Chrysler Building is to have your friend stand in the middle of the street. So that didn't happen so much. Oh, and then one other thing. This is an oddity, but I had to include it. Some people filmed the Chrysler Building. I guess we could be charitable and say this is some sort of tribute to Warhol, but, they seem bound on, filming the completely stationary Chrysler. But as my collection of photos grew, I discovered that I wasn't alone. Metatourism was rampant on the web, on sites like Flickr. Everywhere there were tourists. There were metatourists, like myself. There were metatourists in Australia. There were metatourists in the Forbidden City. I like this tourist in particular. He has a name tag and apparently the official Forbidden City T-shirt. There were metatourists at the Pantheon. There were even metatourists in Philadelphia. And I particularly like the caption on this one. This was on Flickr, and it was actually titled Metatourism. So, I mean, I'm not the only one using the term. Almost, but not quite. And but I really like the caption on this. The caption on this was, me taking a picture of Megan taking a picture of the Liberty Bell. This is so deep, I can barely stand it. I couldn't agree more. But as I dug even deeper, I discovered that even though this was itself a microgenre, there were even genres within this category. For example, if you've been to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you've probably taken a picture that makes it look like you're holding the building up. You know, you have your friend take it, put your hands up, it looks like you are keeping the tower from falling down. We've all done it. But I just want to warn you that if somebody else was taking your picture from another angle, you probably look something like this. These are called pizza pushers, and there is a whole group dedicated to them on Flickr. Which is an amazing performance. Yeah, I think he actually believes. I mean, the picture from the right angle must be incredible. Here is a whole bunch of them. That's right, it looks like an insane asylum. People on Flickr, interestingly, because they don't have the expertise I do, were puzzled by what this picture was about. But, you know, you have to know a little art history to understand what he was going for, which is he was paying homage to the movie poster for Deuce Bigalow, European Chicken. So very canny reference. They did not figure out. Metatourism isn't all silliness, despite your reaction here tonight. In 2004, Ian Spears, a photography student with a dark complexion, he is half Scottish and half African American, had two separate run-ins with authorities while trying to photograph the Ballard Locks near Seattle for a class assignment. He tells his story very well at brownequalsterrorist.com, which I include everyone to visit. And he accompanied with photos he took of other non-brown tourists who were not hassled by Homeland Security for taking the very same pictures he was taking. But now we're having an moment. But he tells the story very well. There's Ian. So. But what's so interesting about tourists anyway? And how has taking pictures of them become a hack snapshot cliche, like taking your own picture in a store window or photographing the homeless? As a former contributor to a Teutonic phenomenological journal, it would be easy enough for me to stand up here and do an existential riff on, for example, this guy. He's at the Hoover Dam. He's wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt. He's got a camera. It's got the camera bag. He's far from home, probably, not just literally, but figuratively, as we all are, as he trains the gaze of his camera, hoping to capture, for just one instant, an eternal memory to which he might tether his own ephemeral existence. Some grad school, huh? But what about the metatourist? What are his or her motivations? What about his or her own ephemeral existence? I can only speak for myself. Like everyone who wasn't born here, I arrived in New York way too late. But New York is like that. Whenever you get here, it feels like everything's already happened. And plenty of people will tell you that it already has. Some people who might live in this neighborhood. I moved to New York in the fall of 2000 and lived briefly in an apartment at Hudson and 10th with no furniture. I slept on the floor for a week.
Oh, man.
I listened to 1010 Winds and tried to figure out how the hell I was going to get all the way to Kmart and back. When my job finally started, which is why I came here in the first place, I went to work on a corner with a great view of the Chrysler Building, where I stood outside, smoked, and watched all the people who got here even later than me. They just kept coming, and every day there were more of them. Eventually, I took their pictures, which I suppose was just my way of saying, keep it moving, Sven. I was here first. Thank you.